We got a question from Melly Matrix going back to your first round pick. Why Polk over Legette?
Again, I'm not too. I wouldn't say like if they drafted Legette, I wouldn't be like, oh, they didn't get my guy. I'm not married to Polk by any means. I just think Polk does a lot of things well, to the point where he's an easy plug. And I think for us, I want a guy who's just ready to play like right now. I want like NFL ready players like today. Not to say Legette's not. I just think Polk's a lot more easily, more versatile and easily adjusted to being the number 2-3 guy off the bat and ready to play. Especially on a team where he was already the number 2 and excelled in that role. And they had a really good 3 at receiver. So the fact that he stands out in tape, it's not to say I'm against Legette or by any means. And if we drafted him, I'd be like, that's fine. If they think he's the guy to come in and fill in while Rice is suspended, because he will be suspended, and then still be able to be the number 3, 4, 5 option on our team, then by all means. I just like that Polk doesn't have any real big weaknesses. I like that he does a lot of things really well. He's just a solid prospect.
The interesting, I got to a little back and forth with somebody on Twitter earlier today because Legette, obviously we had a visit with Xavier Legette, so that's obviously on our radar. And someone was like, and I was like, I don't mind having a DK Debo hybrid on a team. I wanted Treylon Burks a couple of years ago because he was very much like that. I think Legette's got a little bit more to him, I would say. But someone was like, I don't want a guy. No thanks. I don't want a guy who has no body of work in college, which is fair outside of 1 year, which is fair. But then my counter to that was Brett Veach said last week his biggest draft regret was not drafting DK Metcalf, who also, you look at his numbers in college, didn't do much. His numbers were not sexy or flashy, and you would think, oh, that's not going to translate over to the NFL. And look, DK Metcalf's been amazing. Brett Veach is saying it's one of his biggest draft regrets and mistakes is not drafting DK Metcalf. So if they do see the DK Metcalf, Xavier Legette like comparison there, just because he only had 1 year of body of work in college, then like there you go. I mean, for people to write off a guy because they didn't really show out in college, I think that's stupid.
No, it's dumb. It's totally dumb.
It's so dumb because you really can't compare the two. I get the being scared by that, but at the end of the day, Legette did show out this past year. Maybe not the years before that, but his most recent season, he was fine. Metcalf for 3 years didn't do anything in college. Yeah, he had decent numbers, but they didn't blow off the charts. And look what he's done in his career. So
no, I think Metcalf excelled really well with Seattle. And I've heard scouts talk about this because Seattle was like, okay, you do like one thing extremely well. We're going to have you do that. In the meantime, develop your other skills, but still get use out of you in that regard, right? Legette's really good at high pointing the catch, very good at contested catches, and just like a built beast, like a slightly like shorter, smaller Metcalf. I'm trying to get away from he's limited in his routes, just like Metcalf was. Metcalf developed. The problem is if you don't develop that, right? So Polk doesn't really need that fine tuning. He's ready to come in and do whatever you need him to do, wherever he needs to be. And with our team where we have a lot of guys who do specialized things really well, I think we kind of need guys who can do a little of everything. And Polk can line up anywhere, and he's a technician. He's got all that on him. And I don't think we have a lot of guys like that, or at least not successful ones.
Yeah.
We supposedly had guys that could do it all, but they haven't done it all. And I think with Rice developing, and I think he's got his certain strong suits, and I think Hollywood Brown obviously has his main strong suit that he does, and he can do other things too. But I think it's good to have Polk in there to put at a position when Rice is out, and when Rice is back, you can just line him up anywhere. And he can do anything you ask him to do. I want that for us. I think we need a guy like that.
So to answer Lewis Cuthbert's question, what's so special about Polk? Polk is a ready to go guy. Yeah. And also, I've heard Schrager was talking about how a lot of experts are calling Polk this year's Puka Nacua, which is interesting. Puka Nacua doesn't really blow you off the charts with anything really, but he's a solid guy, and we saw what they were able to do with him in Los Angeles past year. So do you see the Puka Nacua kind of comparisons? I know you mentioned Josh Reynolds as a player comp, but people are comparing him to a Puka Nacua type guy in this year.
Yeah, because Puka's kind of like a rich man's Reynolds, isn't he?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, right. Even like the long hair too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I could see that. I mean, his comps. I mean, what were his comps? Reynolds and Sanu. I guess he kind of has that in him. From listening to the PFF guys, they didn't mention him. They just said like Polk's just really solid, and he'll be your badass number 2 or 3 out there. Again, I'm not like I wouldn't be surprised or disappointed if we went Legette. It doesn't matter for me. They're both really good at high pointing. And Polk, some people say, slightly limited on the routes, but I think he's got a little more route running ability than Legette does. But again, I think these guys are like next to each other on like most people's rankings.
Yeah.
So like they're right near each other.
And we brought in the number 3 receiver from Washington. We brought in McMillan. So
that's right.
He's going to go later on in the draft.
Yeah. He's from what I've read, is more relegated to the slot at this point.
Okay. So he would be more Sky Moore kind of guy.
He'd be more of our, yes. If we were like Sky ain't doing it. If we draft McMillan, Sky Moore's got, he grabbed his deli number, okay, about ready to check out. That's what that means.
So for the people who are trying to draw comparisons to Sky Moore and Jaylen Polk, they're 2 totally different type of guys. Because people are trying to compare Sky to Polk here.
I would say Sky's more
McMillan.
Okay. Polk's 6'2", like 205, dude. I mean,
yeah, he's a big kid. Yeah,
that's not like he's a high point contested catch guy.
Yeah,
go up and get it. Strong hands, really, really strong hands. So yeah, I don't see that. I don't. Especially now when he's getting comparisons to those other guys I talked about. They're both
they're
both big guys. Like Sanu was a man. Like he was a big dude.
Oh yeah, for sure. I would say Polk for me, it's like if you're describing your significant other, the girl you're seeing, like, how's she like personality wise, how she like, looks wise, a good solid 7.5. This is 7.5. I'm not gonna give you a 10, not 10. This is good, solid 7.5. It's like a solid. It's a solid prospect, guys. I would love Polk, especially if we're gonna move back and get some more assets out of it. I would love this. But let me ask you though. I know you're a big Troy Franklin fan. Let's say Troy Franklin's on the board at 32.
Franklin.
And Ladd McConkey at 32. Are you trading out?
I was going to if we trade back and get Franklin.
No. If Polk is
Franklin was on the board. Franklin was on the board when I did this trade.
And Ladd?
Yes, they both were, I believe.
And you'd still do this?
Yeah, because the more and more I read, I used to choose that a lot. The more and more I read, the more and more I watch. It's just so stacked. This receiver class is so stacked. These guys are so close. If you can get another guy, it's like saying what would you rather have? Would you rather have a Ladd or Franklin or Polk and Kingsley? You know what I mean? Like, what are we talking about here? If we could trade back at a very, very, very similar guy to those guys, not an actual profile, but like in like ranking and like how they project. If we can get that guy and then get another pick, like that leads to like another second or third round pick, I mean, it's not even close for me.
Yep. All right.
I love Ladd. I love Ladd throughout this process a lot. I like Franklin. That's the thing. Like I've had so many different crushes, and and after a while, I was like, shoot, dude, I actually wouldn't mind a lot of these guys. Like screw it. Like, they have a lot of different fun things that you want. They're not like the top receiver type guy in a draft, but in a weaker year, these guys could have gone like in the 20s.
Yeah, no, I've heard that. I've heard that about Polk, about Franklin, about all these guys, that if there was no Marvin Harrison, there's no Neighbors, there's no Romo Aduze, these guys are the top receivers in the draft class.
Yeah. I've looked at Franklin and Polk against like last year's, and I think one of the websites I go to, I think their overall rating was like 0.3 less, 0.2 less than like the guys that went in the early 20s.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's what our guy D Plus said. As Chief fans, we just want them to catch the ball, and that's the God's honest truth there, D Plus. That is the God's honest truth.
And these guys do that. Strong hands.
Yeah. Honestly, insert Xavier Legette, insert Ladd McConkey. I love this draft class so much that I wouldn't be pissed off about any of the guys we've talked about. Franklin, Legette, Polk, McConkey, any of these guys. I would not be pissed off about any of them.
Totally. Yeah. Like I said, I'm more about the position than I am the player. How they think certain guys can fit into what we're doing, then I'm down for it. Doesn't matter to me. I don't like any. If there was one, watch us get this guy. If there was one guy in all the first or second round receivers, I think I'd be the most disappointed in
Brian Thomas.
At 32, I think after some of the stuff I've read about him, I think I would be. I think someone's going to take him earlier than that anyway, though. So luckily we'll be bailed out. But you're right about that. That would be one in the first round.
He's the only guy I'm like, yeah.
I think Corley for me in the second round.
Yeah. Western Kentucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that would be like, oh man, like, all right, sure. If you guys think you're gonna make him a thing, then go ahead. Like that would be my like, I trust you guys. Like there's a different range or a scale there. I think that would be like really high 90s for like, all right, I trust you guys. You guys know more than me. Like that's what I have to hope for. I'm an idiot, and they're the geniuses in the room.
D plus, this is you're talking to Teja here, who his first mock he had. Jermaine.
Oh, dude, I'm a Burton guy. Believe me, man. I just with the problems we're having currently, I'm just skeptical on us pulling the trigger on that. Like, I love Burton. Burton is talent-wise, talk about a guy who, if he was a good teammate and a good guy on the field at a temper, he like ranks right outside the top 3.
Mm-hmm.
Among a lot of guys. The PFF guys were doting over him.
Yeah.
And one of the guys was pressing the guy because he couldn't come up with the number 4 receiver on his list. And the other dude was like, stop being a wuss and just say who the number 4 is. And he's like, Burton. That's who the 4th most talented receiver is.
Yep.
But they say, Burton is off the board for a lot of teams.
Yep.
So here's a question, though. If he's not off our board, then how high do you go with him? You don't have to trade back on him.
Also going to be pushback with if we draft him.
Oh, totally. But I don't think he has brushes with the law. His stuff's like on the field.
No, but they could say, it's going to translate. And they already have problems with off the field. Then you got this going on. Yeah. It's a headache for sure. But we're about to get to another guy who we've actually brought on a visit since a disciplinary running with the wall.
And my question would be, how long is Kelsey going to stay with us? Because if Kelsey can stay, if you think Kelsey's going to stay for 3+ years, then draft Burton. Because if there's someone that can teach another guy how to calm his temper to make it functional and put it on the field instead, it's Kelsey. Because his biggest problem is he's intense. He talks a lot of shit to cornerbacks, and he has a bad temper. Yep. But if you can get a guy like Kelsey, who that's kind of a lot of what he had coming out of college too, which is why he slipped a little bit.
Yep.
That's Kelsey. So if you think Kelsey's going to stay for 3+ years, then I'd say you draft Burton, have him coach him up, and have him learn how to control that temper of his.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out the best clips from Chief Concerns. And if you prefer to listen to the show, subscribe and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.